This is Traci Garr, and welcome back to my podcast on Substack Surrender. I wanted to start this morning by letting you know that it took me a few minutes here just to have the courage to press record. I felt good about the other day when I posted my first podcast and just, some of the feedback I got back from that, and I was so grateful, and it made me excited that this was the right thing for me to do. And then this morning, as I sat here in my chair and was preparing to turn this on, I thought, is this really what I should be doing? Of course, I was self-doubting, questioning myself, as I know many of us do. And then finally, I just took a deep breath and I just pressed record because I thought, this does not have to be something that's polished. I've been writing, and I even just finished up a manuscript for a book titled Truth. And I had it proofread. And, when you do that type of thing, you really do kind of scrutinize what you're writing. I mean, that's the purpose, to sort of proofread it and, make it be something that sounds fluent and something that's would be easily read by others. And I have an amazing, woman who proofreads my work, and she doesn't scrutinize at all. I mean, she clearly does the most amazing job of just seeing what grammatical things have to be changed and making some suggestions. But it is something, though, that I look at very closely, with my magnifying glass. So as I prepare to press record, I said to myself, I'm not going to do that for this. This is not going to be something that I practice. This is not going to be something that I'm driving in the car and I'm preparing for a speech, or even one of my talks that I did with, a women's group. I am just going to speak from the heart. And if I say a couple of uhs, or I say a couple too many ands, or I pause too many times, I know that others will forgive me because it will sound exactly like I talk. However, one thing, and I was cracking up this morning as I was thinking about this, one thing I don't want to do is ramble, because I know that a couple of times I've gotten hysterical because I remember talking to people and I stop and say, wait, what was I saying? How did I get to this point in the conversation? Because I'm rambling. And, whether it's me or I'm talking to my dad or I'm, talking to my mom, we just start laughing because none of us can remember where I started. So I don't want to do that because I don't want to lose you. I, again, still want this focus to be a quick snapshot for your morning so that you feel encouraged. So beginning with that, I just want to relay a truth to you today, since that is what my new book is about. And that's the little picture that I have here, the key to truth, when it's on the screen here for the podcast. One of the things that I've had to really train my brain to do is to remember the truth about who I am on a daily basis. Sometimes we get this large picture in our heads about who we are or who we think we are. And it may be based on something recently that just happened. Maybe we had something really positive happen. We performed in some way, and society gave us, friends, family gave us accolades that really lifted us up to a place where we believe a certain truth about ourselves. But then the next day, something different happens. And I don't know if anybody feels this way like I do, but when that has occurred with me in the past, and this is something I've really had to grow in, it's like I go off of a cliff. I don't even remember in my brain what had happened 24 hours ago, because now I'm focused on this day, on the mistake that I made. And that in itself can derail me for anything for the day that I could see as a positive moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean that I would have a terrible day. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't be able to produce well the way that I had before. It would mean that this is how I was believing. This is how I was thinking. This was the basis of how I was moving into the day. And yes, ultimately, I believe that that will affect something. Maybe we weren't able to give as much as we could have. Maybe we weren't able to um, do a particular event because that energy was wiped out of us. I don't know. But the important thing is that from day to day, we remind ourselves about the truth about who we are. Now, ultimately, the truth at the very top is that we were created by God. He made us, He specifically for a purpose. He calls us by name. You know, the Bible tells us that He knows every hair that's on our heads. There's nothing that happens that is outside of God's understanding and knowledge. So ultimately, our lives are in His hands. And even though we cannot see everything clearly, we need to lift our voices in song. Not literally necessarily, but I mean, we have to give thanks and give joy for this day and remember that simple truth. The most important truth is that we were created and we do have a purpose. It does not mean, in truth, that a day is going to be perfectionism. So if you struggle with that, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that we have to earn it. It doesn't mean that if we fail, that truth goes away. Not by any means. That truth is always there. So what do? We offer this day to God and to others to serve, to give back, to ask God, what can I do today that will remind me of the truth that you put me here for a purpose? Look away from self. Doesn't mean you don't love who you are or love yourself or take care of yourself. It means that sometimes when we look too closely at ourselves, that's when the critical spirit toward our own selves comes in. We need to look away and give back. Call someone, write someone a note. We don't do that anymore. Pick up a pen and write a note. Get a card at the store. Send it in snail mail. Reach out and call someone. Anytime we give back, it helps our own joy and happiness. It helps us remember who we are and why we are here. There is no way that we can leave the course of a day and not feel good by giving back. And then another truth in that same area is just remember that you will get messages of attack. It's just part of human nature. If you believe in a spiritual world that there is good and there is evil, then you know that we are up against an evil force in this world that we need to combat with God's love that comes through and shines through us. We can't always control the events that happen. Something horrible just happened again in York, where I just moved from my home. I just, it's abominable. And every day since then, as I look through Facebook and I read these messages, my heart is just breaking. It's breaking for the community. But in response to that, what I've seen and what I love to see is people rising up, people remembering who they are as God's children, remembering who they are as community members, and doing what they can to help, to minister, to comfort. We can't always control what happens in this world, but we can do things to reach out, to comfort, to bless, to look away from self. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too rambling. Hopefully we pull away from this quick podcast, this quick snapshot, and remember what I started with. And that is that the biggest truth of this day that I want you to remember for just this day only is that you were made for a reason and a purpose by God. You are called by name. Go into this day and remember that no matter what attacks come your way in your minds, Give it back to God. Look away from self and serve. Reach out, encourage someone today, and know how much you are loved. Once again, if everyone in this world even just a little bit knew just a little bit more how much they were truly loved and valued by their maker, this world would function so differently than it does. So let's be the light that we need to be for this day only, one day at a time. It's not just a phrase that is used in jest. It is so true, friends and family. I love you, and I pray for your protection today, and I pray for your joy today. Bye.